Pay attention to the timestamp, 2:09 in the morning. A young woman steps off a plane at Salt Lake City International Airport. She collects her bag. She does not speak to anyone. She walks 31 minutes through a terminal that is mostly empty, and she gets into a lift. That is the last time a camera sees her alive. But here is what the camera does not show. It does not show where she is going. It does not show who is waiting. It does not show what has already been planned. In a house across the city, where the surveillance system has already been switched off, where a secret room beneath the front porch sits waiting, biometric lock engaged, soundproofed walls humming in the dark, the camera only shows a young woman walking toward a car. Watch what happens when the people who are supposed to protect her decide to wait and see. Watch what happens when a system built to respond to danger takes 8 days to call a press conference. Watch what happens when a girl from California lands in Utah at 2 in the morning, texts her mother 3 words, and then disappears into a park where someone she trusts is already waiting. The text read, "Landed, love you mama." She never sent another one. Her name was Mackenzie Lueck. She was 23 years old. She was a pre-nursing student at the University of Utah. She was the only daughter in a family of 4 children. She had grown up in El Segundo, California, attended high school there, moved to Utah to build something new, and was, by every account of every person who loved her, trying to become more of herself, more outgoing, more adventurous. She did not know that the man waiting for her in that park had already decided what the night would cost her. She did not know, but we do. And that is the cruelest kind of story to tell. Before the park, before the phone records, before the fire in the backyard, there was just Mackenzie. She had come back to Utah after burying her grandmother, the woman she had been close to, the one whose death, when Mackenzie stopped answering her phone and went quiet in the days following the funeral, made everyone around her assume she was simply grieving, simply needing space, simply doing what people do when someone they love is gone. Her friends noticed the silence first. Unanswered texts, unopened Snapchats, the kind of quiet that, in the beginning, felt like mourning, and only later felt like something else entirely. She was the second oldest of 4 children, the only girl. She had grown up inside the Church of Latter-day Saints, had moved, perhaps deliberately, to a state saturated with its presence, and was quietly, privately, building a life outside its expectations. Her friends described her as shy, as someone searching. As a person who was learning to take up more space in the world, she was doing what young women in their early 20s do. She was figuring out who she was going to be. On June 17, 2019, she flew back to Salt Lake City after her grandmother's funeral. She landed at 2 in the morning. She texted her mother. She collected her bag and walked through a nearly empty airport without speaking to a single soul. And then, she got into a car with someone she had met on the internet. This is not a judgment. This is the sequence of events. The website was called Seeking Arrangement. It is a platform that connects young women with older, wealthier men. Relationships framed through language of mentorship and mutual benefit. Mackenzie had a profile. She had been using it for some time. Her friends knew. Her Facebook activity suggested she was comfortable with it. She was a young woman making choices that were legal, that were hers to make, and that no one had any right to use against her memory. Her friends would later say exactly that. What those choices did, in this particular instance, was connect her to a man who called himself AJ. They had been in contact since 2018. He had been waiting a very long time. The man behind the profile was 32 years old. He had been born in Nigeria. He had come to the United States, enrolled at the University of Utah to study computer science, been barred from campus after an incident involving a stolen iPad and unresolved visa complications, returned eventually, and never finished his degree. He had briefly been a model. He had served as a member of the Utah Army National Guard. At the time Mackenzie met him, he was working as an information technology specialist. He had also written a book. The book was called Forge Identity. It told the story of a boy named Ezekiel who witnessed a neighbor burned alive by a mob, who survived loss after devastating loss, who became entangled in theft and betrayal, and who ultimately had to decide whether to join the criminal machinery around him or fight his way free of it. The reviews were not good, but the book was not the warning sign. The warning signs were elsewhere, buried in the histories of women who had survived him. He had been married technically still was, to a woman named Tanisha. She had left him. She had left him specifically, urgently, because of what he became when she told him no.
Real aggressive because he wanted me to remove her. You talked to be with him, and I told him no. And I jumped through the window, and he had a butcher knife, was trying to stab me with the knife, and I ended up cutting my hand.
Mackenzie hadn't been heard from in nearly a week. She's been missing since Monday. The police have said that they have no reason to believe she's in danger, but at this point, it's been 7 days. Kenzie, if you can hear this, we are all worried and looking out for you, 24/7. She jumped through a window to escape him, and still, no charges had ever been filed. 2 separate sexual assault allegations, neither resulting in prosecution. A history of documented violence, folded quietly back into the record, sealed away, inaccessible to the next woman who trusted him. Mackenzie did not know about Tanisha. She did not know about the other 2 women. She got into his car at 3 in the morning in a park called Hatch Park. And whatever she knew or did not know about who he really was, she did not know what he had already decided before she arrived. He had turned off the surveillance cameras in his house before she got there. He had been thinking ahead. Here is where 2 stories begin running at the same time. The first story is about a missing girl. The second story is about a system that chose, again and again, to wait. On June 20th, at approximately 4 in the afternoon, Mackenzie's father called the Salt Lake City Police Department and reported his daughter missing. She had been gone for 3 days. The last confirmed contact was a text message sent at approximately 2 in the morning on June 17th. Landed. Love you, Mama. Her car had not moved. No one had heard from her. The police, at this stage, considered her a voluntary missing person. She was 23, an adult. There were no signs of foul play. People disappear sometimes. They need space. They go off the grid. They turn up. This logic is not monstrous. It is, in certain circumstances, reasonable. But it is also the logic that allowed 8 days to pass before a press conference was called. 8 days before the public was told to look for her. 8 days during which a man who had already killed her was still walking around, buying gas cans, lighting fires in his backyard, driving north to a canyon with something in his car. 8 days.
Where could she have gone? Her car has not been moved. Things are adding up.
Kenzie hasn't been heard from in nearly a week.
She's been missing since Monday.
The police have said that they have no reason to believe she's in danger, but at this point, it's been 7 days. Kenzie, if you can hear this, we are all worried and looking out for you 24/7.
Kenzie hasn't been heard from in nearly a week. She's been missing since Monday. The police have said that they have no reason to believe she's in danger, but at this point, it's been 7 days. Kenzie, if you can hear this, we are all worried and looking out for you. 24/7. That appeal went out on June 25th. He had already driven to Logan Canyon by then. He had already left her there. There is a private investigator in this story named Rob Joseph. He is a former Salt Lake City police officer. 3 weeks before Mackenzie disappeared, he met her randomly at a bar in downtown Salt Lake City. They talked. She mentioned the website. He remembered her face. When her name appeared in the news, he recognized her immediately. He began working the case himself, uncovering leads, following threads the police had not yet pulled. It was Joseph who first identified the seeking arrangement connection publicly. It was Joseph who believed, from early on, that whoever picked her up from the park was not a stranger to her. It was Joseph who said, plainly, that he believed this was her first in-person meeting with this particular man. A private citizen, a former cop working on instinct and memory, was running faster than the department he used to work for. This is the second story, the one running underneath the first. The surveillance footage released on June 25th showed Mackenzie walking through the airport at 2:09 in the morning. She deplaned. She walked. She collected her luggage. She got into the lift at approximately 2:40, 31 minutes in a terminal, alone, not speaking to anyone, moving with the calm, unhurried pace of a person who has a plan for where she is going. She had arranged to be picked up. The Lyft driver was located and interviewed. He confirmed the pickup. He confirmed the destination. He described the drop-off with a precision that should have accelerated everything.
We have not yet confirmed the make and model of the car or a description of
We
the
have not
person?
yet confirmed the make and model of the car or a description of the person. They were working on it. Meanwhile, the phone records were pulled. The records showed she had been in contact with a man whose phone number was attached to a name. The name was AJ. AJ's phone had been in Hatch Park that night, within 1 minute of Mackenzie's phone being in the same location. 1 minute. Then Mackenzie's Instagram account moved. After days of silence, after no activity, after nothing, her account suddenly followed a page called Fatherless. That single digital action, whether made by her killer in some moment of carelessness or cruelty or both, led police to a house in Fair Park. The owner of that house became a person of interest, and that is when the police knocked on the door.
Yeah, they didn't give me the search warrant. I authorized it before. And then when they said the search...
We don't have the search warrant in hand.
Can I borrow your phone then to call my lawyer?
I'm going to give you her phone number right now. You remember her name? When we went that?
Susanna.
Yep.
Either you didn't have a conversation with her, or you did. We know you did. We know that you had a conversation continuing. We know that your phone places you up in the exact same area as she was dropped off. Coincidence? Nope. Facts. Did you meet with her up in Salt Lake that night? He said no. He was released the next day. He was released because at that moment, they had phone data and a Lyft driver's testimony. They did not yet have what was burning in his backyard. Neighbors had seen it. A large fire. June 17th into June 18th. He had purchased a gas can 6 hours after Mackenzie got into his car. The fire burned for a long time. He was released, and he went to the library. He told the officer exactly where he would be.
Lyft driver, and learned that Mackenzie was met at Hatch Park by an individual in a vehicle. The Lyft driver left Mackenzie at the park with that person and stated that Mackenzie did not appear to be in any type of distress.
Detectives have spoken with the Lyft driver and learned that Mackenzie was met at Hatch Park by an individual in a vehicle. The Lyft driver left Mackenzie at the park with that person and stated that Mackenzie did not appear to be in any type of distress. She did not appear to be in any type of distress. She trusted him. She had trusted him for over a year, through messages and calls and arrangements made and kept. The Lyft driver saw what she was performing for the world, which was a young woman meeting someone she knew at 3 a.m. in a park and feeling safe enough to step out of one car and into another. What she did not know she needed to perform was fear, because she did not feel it yet, and he had already turned off his cameras. At the library, he sat where they could see him, like he said he would. He waited. They came.
Because I care about Mackenzie, and I want her. I think you did care about her. I agree. And I know that there's more for you to tell me, and you're holding back, and I don't understand why. AJ, I just told you that your phone records and the location put you up at the meet. Do you think, honestly, and expect me to believe that you ended that conversation and somehow you and her location end up in the exact same spot?
Oh, I'm not doubting you. If I see that too, if I'm in your case, I would be asking myself, what are you asking me right now?
It's not a miraculous question.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
Stuff doesn't just happen.
No.
Yes, I agree with you.
I'm telling you to explain that. And so far, you have not.
Well, how do I explain something
I have been very busy because I care about Mackenzie. I want her. I think you did care about her too. I know that there's more for you to tell me, and you're holding back, and I don't understand why, AJ. I just told you that your phone records and the location put you up at the meet. Do you think you honestly expect me to believe that you ended that conversation and somehow you and her location end up in the exact same spot? Stuff doesn't just happen. I agree with you. I'm telling you to explain that, and so far, you have not. He sat across from a detective who was working very hard not to let him see how certain she already was. She offered him the out. She said, I think you cared about her. She gave him room to construct a story that made him look less like what he was. She was trying to get him to keep talking, to make a mistake, to give them something they could use. He gave her almost nothing.
You saying you don't know or you don't remember? Because those are two different things, AJ.
Thing in your pockets that I need to be aware
Carl
of?
explained something I don't know. He was lying. He had planned it. He had turned off the cameras before she arrived. He had strangled her with a belt. She had died from blunt force trauma to the head. He had burned her body in the backyard with a gas can he purchased 6 hours after she stepped into his car. And then, a week later, he had driven north to Logan Canyon and left what remained of her in the woods. He had done all of this. And he sat in that interrogation room and asked how he was supposed to explain something he did not know. He was then arrested. He was released. And then, as the evidence mounted, as the charred remains from his backyard were analyzed, as the phone data from Logan Canyon was traced, as the full architecture of what he had done became undeniable, he was arrested again, this time with cameras watching from every angle.
KSL TV was on the scene as this unfolded and captured this exclusive video. You can see officers in tactical gear gathering on the side of the building, weapons drawn. Murder suspect Ayoola Ajayi is then seen slowly walking toward the officers with his hands raised, one hand holding a cell phone to his ear. As he reaches the officers, the 31-year-old hands over the phone. The SWAT team members lower their guns and place Ajayi in handcuffs. Officers then enter the building. Minutes later, they return and transfer Ajayi across the street to the back seat of a police car. Later this afternoon, crime scene vehicles showed up and entered the building with bags and cameras. This all happened very quickly, really less than a half hour.
You can see officers in tactical gear gathering on the side of the building, weapons drawn. Murder suspect Ayoola Ajayi is then seen slowly walking toward the officers with his hands raised, one hand holding a cell phone to his ear. As he reaches the officers, the 31-year-old hands over the phone. The SWAT team members lower their guns and place Ajayi in handcuffs. He walked out with his hands up and a phone to his ear. To the end, he was managing his image. The search for Mackenzie's body followed his phone's signal north, into Logan Canyon, into the trees.
After an exhaustive week of investigation, we are filing charges of aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and desecration of a body in the homicide of Mackenzie Lueck. The man charged with these horrific and tragic crimes is the person of interest, Ayoola Ajayi.
We recovered the body on Wednesday. The Lueck family would like to express their gratitude for the effort put forth by the Salt Lake City Police Department. One sentence from the family: gratitude for finding what was left of their daughter in the woods of northern Utah, 3 weeks after she had texted her mother 3 words from an airport in the middle of the night. Gratitude, because there was nothing else left to say to the people who were supposed to protect her and didn't move fast enough, and released her killer once already, and needed a private investigator who happened to meet her at a bar to do the work that formal channels were too slow to begin. Gratitude is sometimes the only word that doesn't break. The charges came down with the full weight of what the evidence had revealed.
We recovered the body on Wednesday.
The Lueck family would like to express their gratitude for the effort put forth by the Salt Lake City Police Department.
Her friends say that Mackenzie shouldn't be labeled or judged for someone that she wasn't, based on rumors being spread by people who don't know her.
After an exhaustive week of investigation, we are filing charges of aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and desecration of a body in the homicide of Mackenzie Lueck. Aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, obstruction of justice, desecration of a body. 4 charges for a crime that had been planned before she landed, that had been prepared for with soundproofed walls and biometric locks and surveillance systems switched off at the right moment, that had been carried out by a man who, when asked why he did it, said he simply wanted to know what it felt like. He wanted to know what it felt like. A retired FBI agent who reviewed the case said it plainly. He said Ayoola Ajayi was on his way to becoming a serial killer, that the crime scene was poorly handled, the evidence disposal done badly, the entire execution the work of someone who had not done this before but who intended to keep doing it until he got better. A burgeoning killer stopped mid-development. Stopped because a Lyft driver remembered a park. Because phone records placed him within 1 minute of where she was dropped off. Because he made the small, careless mistake of following a page called Fatherless from her Instagram account. A single tap that led investigators to his door, because he wasn't as careful as he thought he was. The additional charges arrived as investigators continued their work. 2 counts of kidnapping and sexual assault connected to 2 other women he had attacked. Women who had survived. Women who had not pressed charges. And then, retrieved from his computer, 19 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor. 19 counts. This was who had been waiting in that park. In October of 2020, Ayoola Ajayi stood in a Utah courtroom and pleaded guilty to first-degree aggravated murder and third-degree desecration of a human body. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He will not get out. He will not get the chance to learn from his mistakes and do it better the next time. He will grow old inside a building, and the world outside will continue without him. And somewhere north of Salt Lake City, in a canyon where he drove in the dark to leave her, the trees will keep growing the way they always have. Now here is the thing about Mackenzie Lueck that the headline never fully captured. She was not just a victim. She was not just a pre-nursing student. She was not just the girl from El Segundo who made choices that people would later debate in comment sections and online forums with more cruelty than sense. She was someone who made people laugh. She was someone who could walk into a room and lift the weight of it just by being there. She was 23 and figuring herself out, the same as every other 23-year-old who has ever lived. And the thing she was doing that night was not stupid or reckless or deserving of any of what happened. She was meeting someone she trusted. She was trying to be more adventurous in a world that tells young women to be bold and then punishes them for it. Her friends said it clearly. They said Mackenzie should not be labeled or judged for someone she wasn't, based on rumors being spread by people who didn't know her. They said she was the kindest and sweetest person, someone who could always lift their spirits and make them laugh. Those words do not need to be improved. They only need to be heard. There is one more piece of this story that is easy to miss if you are looking only at the crime. 3 weeks before Mackenzie disappeared, a private investigator named Rob Joseph met her at a bar in downtown Salt Lake City. They talked, as strangers sometimes do, and she mentioned the website she was using. He remembered her. When her name appeared in the news, he recognized her face. And he went to work? He was the one who surfaced the seeking arrangement connection early. He was the one who believed, from the beginning, that whoever picked her up was not a stranger. He was a former Salt Lake City police officer working on instinct, on memory, on a conversation he had no reason to remember but did. The institutional machinery was slow. The press conference came 8 days late. The suspect was released once before he was arrested for good. The system, the formal, procedural, bureaucratic system that is supposed to catch these things before they become tragedies, moved at the speed it moves. Rob Joseph moved faster. This is not an indictment. Officers are human. Capacity is finite, and voluntary missing persons reports are not always what they appear to be. But it is a thread that runs through this story, whether you pull on it or not. The question of what might have been different if the machinery had been faster. If the press conference had come on day 3 instead of day 8. If the phone records had been subpoenaed sooner. If the backyard had been searched before the fire had done its work. These are not comfortable questions. They are the questions that tend to get raised quietly, filed away, and then forgotten until the next case that looks just like this one. Mackenzie's friends did not forget. In the wake of her death, the women who had stood beside her, the sisters of her sorority at the University of Utah, did what grieving people sometimes do when grief becomes something they cannot survive without giving it a purpose. They built something. They called it Mackenzie's Voice. It is a non-profit organization, founded in her name, dedicated to supporting families of missing persons, amplifying cases that might otherwise go unheard, and providing the kind of resources that can make the difference between a case that goes cold and a case that gets solved. A voice for the people the system moves too slowly to reach. A voice built out of the absence of hers. The sorority sisters who knew her, who watched her disappear and then searched for her and then mourned her. They created the thing that she could no longer create herself. They took her name and attached it to a mission that would keep going after the headlines faded, after the trial ended, after the sentence was handed down and the courtroom emptied out. Mackenzie's voice, because she had one, because she deserved to be more than the story of how she died. Because 23-year-old women from El Segundo who are trying to figure out who they are going to be should get to find out. Because the man in that park did not get to be the last word on who she was. Her friends got that. And this is what one of them said about the girl, who could walk into any room and make it lighter just by being there. Mackenzie was the kindest and sweetest person. Someone who could always lift our spirits and make us laugh. That is the last line. Not the courtroom, not the canyon, not the sentence, handed down in October of 2020 to a man who wanted to know what it felt like. The last line belongs to the people she left behind, the ones who built something in her name so that the next family sitting by a phone, waiting for a call that isn't coming, waiting for a system to move faster than systems tend to move, so that the next family does not have to wait alone. Mackenzie's voice is still running. She is still speaking.